Samurai Success Community, welcome back to the Scroll. As always, I am here with David Olcott, our CEO, and special guest Matt Hepfinger. Great to see you both.
It's Ryan, always good to see you, sir.
Great to see you and
Got
to
it.
see yourself, Matt. David, I would love it if you would introduce Matt to our community.
Wow, what an honor it is. Matt and I met a little over a year ago. He's been working with us for a year, and I will tell you, Matt's the kind of person that you always hope shows up in your life. That's the best way to describe Matt. He's just full of joy. He's full of light. He goes through his stuff though. I mean, he does his work, and I'm really proud of him. That's why today I'm really excited about endorsing him for the SOFI program here in the United States. He is going to be our facilitator, our manager, the group coach, if you will, to be able to bring people along the path of the SOFI program, Swords of Illumination, here in the Americas, as you are in doing it, taking care of us for Europe. So, really excited about the two of you, introducing you to the community, of course, with Matt today, and just tell us about the journey that about to go on.
Love it. Matt, would you like to give yourself a bit of a personal introduction? Let us know who you are and how you've come to be part of the team here at Samurai Success.
Sure thing. Yeah. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is, I'm based in Denver now, but, I attended the University of Pittsburgh. My path was chemical engineering. It was really challenging. I got a full scholarship for academics. Very excited because, I've always loved to build out processes and solve problems. It was a great opportunity. I landed a rotating internship with Procter& and Gamble after my sophomore year. So that was an early start, got into corporate America, and it's almost 20 years of developing products, doing launches and scale up and commercialization. Met some amazing people. Moved to downtown Chicago for about 15 years. Worked for some big players there. Worked for PepsiCo. Worked for Method. Really just had a lovely time learning and managing R&D teams and launching new things from personal care all the way to food and beverage. So my path was definitely that corporate path for a while. But then I met my wife, Sarah, in downtown Chicago. And after a few years, we did our pros and cons list and we decided we wanted to make the move out west. So this is actually our 10th year here in Denver, coming up in October, which is really exciting. And, I have to say, we moved out here to be close to the outdoors that we love so very much and also to start a family. So I'm a father of two boys, Dax and Ozzy. They're 7.5 and 5.25. So it's bonkers and it's lovely. And they bring us lessons every single day, and just a ton of joy. So I'm really excited to be a part of this because my path diverged and I realized what I was doing was great for a time, but was no longer who I was. And Sarah, my wife, actually found Samurai Success and pushed me to get out of my comfort zone. She's always really backed me as a coach and a mentor. She's like, you need to do this. And I answered the call and here we are. So there's a lot in between there, but I'm couldn't be more excited to be a part of this team and to bring these amazing opportunities to the world. So
And now 100% back in the comfort zone to
yeah.
remain forever. Yeah, fantastic. One of the things about this community is they're engaging in swords of illumination at varying different degrees, whether that be hearing the content and hearing the clips that we put out or having an experience of the book for themselves. And I guess you've gone a step further and you've really gone to a program of coaching with David. You've been applying this technology. Maybe you can just give a bit of an overview of how you've been applying all these teachings the last 12 months and kind of what's that done for you in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an incredible journey. You don't realize where you're at. David early on told me that eventually where I was going to feel like a dream and that I would be in a different place. And at the time, okay, yeah, I'm on board. And now I see it for real. Some of the beautiful things that have happened, you're able to clear things that have been holding you back and things that you didn't even realize were blocks and things that maybe trigger you that, like with my sons, things where I'd be like, why am I upset? I'm not that kind of person. And just the teachings and the work that SOFI brings has just given me such clarity. such calm confidence. It's hard to even really describe, but your life changes. The way that you handle everyday things, be it adversity, be it happiness, more present and patient and playful with my sons, my wife, my friends, and things have just, I don't know, from a heart standpoint, have really just come into a beautiful coherence that I didn't know was possible. I was in a great spot before, I thought, and now it's just elevated to a place where I don't know, I listen more, I shut up more, which is an important part. I'm quite a talker, and that's something that has been a challenge, and just seeing how some of these things that seem really simple, once they take root, things just start to change for you. And it's been a lovely journey. Been journaling a lot. Sometimes I look back on it and wow, the progress I've been able to make through David and Swords of Illumination has just been such a lovely experience.
I love that. Every Friday we come together as a team here at Samurai Success, and it's always a joy just to hear some new story from the world of Matt and his family, like the stories you share about the application. And it doesn't make sense, on the surface level. You think some of these experiences you're having, it's like no way, man, like no way. It is just there's absolute magic in it, and every week it's not just it's coming every week. Never guess what. It's just fantastic to see.
I love it.
Great. Before we get on, talk about the wonderful opportunity coming up, David. Since we've last spoke here through the scroll, we've obviously launched in the UK. That fast got renamed to SOFI Europe because there were just so many connections within the group that we couldn't contain it to just the UK. What's it like for you, David, as the CEO, as the author of this book, to really see this work now really starting to spread and come to life?
You know, as someone who is the vision that I have with things, you think I wouldn't be as startled and that I am, but it's surreal, Ryan. As you know, we've been talking about every single week that you always hope that the things you share with people are going to have the impact. You always hope, right? And there's always this, oh, maybe they won't see it. Maybe I have to explain it. It is absolutely surreal to watch this group of people have the same kind of insights, the same kind of triggers, the same kind of emotions, the same kind of experiences, shared experiences. And I think this group dynamic is really bringing something different to my perspective than I even had imagined, which is saying something because I got a pretty big imagination. But to watch this group of people so committed, it's hard work, and yet they're really committed to being in it and staying with it and really asking the deeper questions. And that's what's so fascinating right now about the 10% that were complete, as we talked about this week. We still got 90% to go, but I will tell you this first 10%, when you experience it, you'll know what we're talking about. Is like, holy crap, I thought I knew stuff, and this just blew my mind. So it's
Yeah.
exciting to watch.
Yeah, exciting. I won't say too much about the Europe, but we're just hitting what I imagine is our first kind of base camp, So we've gone deep. We've gone deep for a few months, and now it's like, whoo, let's catch our breath and let some of this settle down and consolidate the journey we've been on together this short amount of time. Matt, you've just heard there from David how excited he is. How do you feel about becoming the head coach of the North America cohort of Swords of Illumination?
Oh, just beyond excited. I'm honored to be a part of this, and now to actually be able to bring these teachings to others because, as David will tell you, once you have that personal verified experience, it's not a sales thing. It's just, oh my God, I want to share this with everyone because my life is better than I ever thought it would be. And it's not like, oh, I suddenly have a bunch of money or something like that. Like those things will happen, but it's just being that congruent self. And I can't wait to share that with other people and see how they can elevate their experience. I mean, just it's every day, and it's just I'm beyond excited. And as you guys know, I'm a bit of a people person. I love sharing. I love being a part of that. So to have structure and to have something that I've been through and now can feel that, I'm ecstatic about it.
Yeah, fantastic. As we did with the Europe program, we had a series of showcase presentations, an opportunity for people just to come and spend half an hour of time with David and us both to really get a sense of what the program's all about, some of the details, just to really get that clear answer come the end of that 30 minutes of is this the path for me or not? And we have some showcase presentations available. Maybe you can give us a bit more of the detail, Matt, around what we're inviting people into week commencing the 22nd next week.
Yeah, next week. So we have 4 different sessions that will be discussing the program, kind of the answer some questions, what is it about, a little bit more about the structure to it, and then, how you can apply. And it's really there's a link that we can send that'll give even more information. But the showcase presentation is really going to bring to light, some live from people that have experienced it and from the creator himself. And it's just really, because I know it sounds a little esoteric, but it's real work, and it's a lot of personal journeys. But as David will tell you, it's not a seminar. You're not just going to sit and listen and hope that change happens. You dig in and you do a lot of this work yourself. It's not easy, but it's an incredibly beneficial journey. So yeah, next week we'll have 4 different sessions to choose from, about a half hour to just really dig in and understand it, see if it's for you.
Love that. So we've gone for different days, different times of the day, just to really give no excuses for people not to attend. So if you're curious, if you're listening, if this is resonating, don't think about it. As Yoshi found out in the book, it's we do decisions. We don't make decisions, we do them. So in this moment, we'll head to the link in the show notes and choose one of the 4 showcase presentations. 30 minutes. They're free to attend. There's no obligation, and you will leave with absolute clarity if this is for you or not. David, any final thoughts, final comments before we move on to today's topic?
No, it's just one of those things that, as a society, we're going through some really tough times. There's no question about that, guys. Um, this is the opportunity that I believe I've been waiting for my whole life to be able to start experiencing things, because I noticed that in the teachings that were being created that I was responsible for events that were going on in my life. And I realized that that isn't true. We actually don't create events individually. We actually create events socially constructed from a social consciousness side. So I don't always feel in control of the events that show up in my life, but I can take control over how I experience those events in my life. And that's exactly what the SOFI program is designed to do, is to put you back in control, take that responsibility of being purpose driven again. And I think that's what Matt was talking about being so ecstatic, is that it doesn't always manifest things the way you think you're going to, but starting to be centered in all this chaos. I cannot tell you how good that feels, that when someone comes to you who really needs the help, guys, who really needs the help, and you can be so centered in that storm that they're in, because you've been there, you know what it's like, you know how to get through it. To have that centeredness, to not rush the process, to not sell somebody something, just to be able to be there for them and help them through that path. I mean, that's the dream here, guys. It's always been the dream here. So to experience it is pretty wonderful.
Fantastic. Links in the notes. We'll make sure that it's there, clear and obvious for you to be able to click on. Oh, thank you. Love that. Great to. I'm excited for that next week, Matt. Okay, today's topic. David, something happens with the ego. I have an ego, and
What?
I know it's just surprising, isn't it? So, what a
Wait a minute.
revelation!
Hold on. Hold on.
That's the today's topic. That's the surprise bombshell. Ryan has an ego. And the thing about your teachings that I've engaged with over the years, David, that they kind of counter the way that the world teaches them. And most of today's world will take today's topic and say you got to get rid of it, you got to crush it, you got to, and you're about to say something different. So I'm just gonna give an advance warning to the egos out there that you're gonna hear some different information today, and that's okay.
Well, then I better announce that I have an ego and it's already pushing back. So
Fantastic. David, you're at the forefront of entrepreneurship. You're on the ground. You're speaking with people at the real forefront of doing wonderful things in the world. And yet this topic keeps coming up in your conversations, and it's imposter syndrome. I know that many people will be familiar with the terms imposter syndrome. Maybe you can introduce to us your understanding of the term imposter syndrome.
yeah, I mean, being in this industry for as long as I have been, 35 years, 30 years with Samurai Success, but in the coaching business, 35, and seeing the thing, this is topic has been here forever, guys. It's just it had different names. And by the way, we used to use the word confidence around things. You have to have more confidence. There are some other adjectives that people use. You got to have big, things like this. But the idea here is this imposter syndrome is a real thing that we're dealing with. And I want to let you know that the soul accepts what I'm about to share with you. So if you just take that perspective, and that is that the soul accepts all these things, the ego pushes against all things that doesn't make sense to it. And change is the one thing that happens on a consistent basis in this physical plane. It's the constant. So if you're holding on to old belief systems and things keep changing around you, then you're actually falling behind, if you will. And that's what it kind of feels like. It feels like, oh, why is everybody seem I'm like 2 steps forward, 10 steps back, or any other version of that, right? 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And it feels like that because our beliefs are limiting us and anchoring us to a past cycle that doesn't really exist anymore because the cycle has changed. So we've got to keep up with those things. What does that mean? I don't get to, stay committed to my beliefs? No, as a matter of fact, it makes it even more important to stay committed to your belief systems. But it's about being committed to what? So this imposter syndrome, what is this really about? The imposter syndrome isn't about getting rid of it. It isn't about replacing it. It's about understanding how to use it. The imposter syndrome is always going to be here. So I'm going to give you kind of a scale that talks about this. And that is when you're really good at something, really confident about something, right? This just starts to move this thing that says, hey, there's this gap. There's a subject I want to be after and something I'm mastering. I'm closing that gap. So between that gap, whatever that gap size is where the imposter syndrome exists. The part that I don't have 100% certainty about in this physical plane with the spiritual energy and the manifestations that we have as observers and humans, all three of those dimensions connected, there is never going to be a time where you're 100% certain. 100% certainty suggests that there's something called an absolute truth in this physical realm. My understanding about this, my experience of this, is that there is no such thing as 100% certainty or an absolute truth. There is a truth and there is the truth. The truth is an absolute. That doesn't exist here. But the truth in all our different perspectives becomes a truth. And that a truth is something we hold on to called our belief systems. So between that gap, there's always going to be 100% certainty, and I'm 90% certain on this. There's always going to be a gap. Sometimes I'm 70% certain about it. Sometimes I'm 30% sure. I haven't even done this before, like playing hockey, for example. I was 100% sure I couldn't play hockey because I'd never done it before. But then as I started learning it, I started closing that gap of being able to skate, work with a coach, learn how to puck handle, puck security, all the things, putting on my skates, getting over the player's bench. All those things started experiencing things and closing that gap. But what I didn't do in that process is I didn't give too much credibility to that imposter syndrome. I don't know what I'm doing. I could be this. And so, a great example of this is that I signed up for a class to be able to learn how to ice skate. I'd never, ice skated before. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go learn from the best. So I went to a class called Laura Strom's, who was a teacher, a ballet teacher, but also a figure skating teacher, and she actually taught the Red Wings, the NHL hockey team, our rivals of the Avalanche at the time. She had actually taught them how to figure skate, and some of the best skaters and times Stanley Cup winners with the Red Wings at the time. So there was no denying that that paid off. There was some real benefits to it. So I went to her class, and I'm 5'8.5", I think, with heels on, guys. And I was literally the tallest person in the class because I was also the oldest person in the class because the closest person to me, I think, was 12 years old. I was 40 at the time. So there was, thank God there were some height differences, right? I'll never forget as I was standing up there looking around going, should I even be in this class? Should I be in this class? There was this young man looking up at me like this. He goes, what grade are you in?
There are times where I wish there were photo evidence of these things, David, because our social media would
Oh,
just catch
I am so
fire.
thankful, Father, that you don't have cameras there. But the point is that we were doing things at 12 years old. We were doing star bellies. We were, skating along and jumping on our bellies. I'm 40 years old. Well, what am I doing? I wanted to learn this, guys. I have to be willing to do whatever it takes to be able to learn how to ice skate because I knew that there was three elements I had to do, and I had to learn ice skating, puck handling, and puck security, right? How to handle this thing with this thing. So anyway, I had this incredible imposter syndrome, but I didn't give it much credibility. I just kept doing the work, and I started slowly closing the gap. But I want to be really clear with you guys. If ever you find yourself you're 100% certain about something, you should use that as a key behavioral indicator to check in on yourself because you've gotten overconfident. Here's what I mean. In this physical plane, please remember there is structure already existing here, and you have to understand that structure. And in this physical plane, this is a faith-based reality. That should tell you to your logical, rational mind that if it's faith-based, 100% certainty cannot exist. Because if there was 100% certainty, what would be the purpose of faith? There is always faith in your calculation. And if you don't notice it there, then you should be worried. You should be like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't consider something because all of a sudden you've gone from confidence to cockiness. And I promise you that will kick your butt. You start getting too cocky with stuff, you're not respecting that thing. You're not humble enough to understand that you've got a learning curve to go through. You're about to get some quality feedback that you may not have anticipated. So I say that tongue in cheek. Ask me how I know this. Because I have an ego and it likes to get me in trouble with stuff. And I like to get myself out of trouble with stuff. So I've learned to be able to use my ego as opposed to my ego using me.
Yeah. Yeah, we serve people that are doing great things in multiple areas of their life, primarily business, but also, physical, sports, parenting. There's a whole realm of role distinctions that people have through our clients. And, what's the commonality of that experience of feeling like an imposter? What does that sound like? What does that feel like to the average person going through that syndrome?
So I don't know what it feels like to everybody else, but I can tell you what it feels like to me. It's really uncomfortable, especially when I'm a subject, right? And oftentimes I go in there and people want to expect me to play a certain role because hey, you're really good at this area, so you must be really good at this area. That doesn't always mean that. And I always go in there with not this evaluator concept, but this true student concept. And this something we learn at the SOFI program is that when you enter the learning curve or entering something new, if you go in there as the evaluator, like you think you already know something, you're not going to do really well on the learning curve. But if you go in as a master student, as opposed to the master teacher, then you're going to have a very different experience. So that's my choice. And whenever I go into an event, I always do two things that you and I talk about all the time in the scrolls and here in the company that we live this stuff. We're always very clear about who we are, our role distinction before going into the event, and clear about our outcome. Now, there's not an attachment to that outcome. It's just a clarity about that outcome. But I'm very clear about who I want to be while I'm in that event. And I make those decisions before going into those events. Because I have found that when I don't make that discernment, that distinction before going into the event, sometimes I get triggered by things that I shouldn't have gotten triggered for because I've forgotten who I am. Oh, crap, I wasn't playing that role here. Oh, I shouldn't have gotten that upset about this. That was not my role to play here. There was somebody else that was doing that. So by going in without two questions about who I am and what's my outcome here, I solve a lot of the frustration and stress that I used to deal with in my life.
Yeah, and one of the things we've touched on through Sophie in the UK cohort so far is that nothing has meaning save the meaning we give it. And even the words imposter syndrome, that's a high charge. There's a lot of energy behind those words, right? And I imagine you don't go into events with a pre-identity selection of I am an imposter.
Wouldn't that be fun in sales?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I know you're going to pay way too much for this product, and we're really going to underservice you. We're really going to make a disaster of your life for the next 6 months, and we're going to overcharge you, and it's going to be over budget. So, yeah, let's go in with truth in sales now, because that's the imposter syndrome shows up the other way, promising you all the kind of stuff we can't deliver on.
What is what is the implications for an I am not? I think one of the things that the imposter syndrome, particularly for me, if I'm being honest around my, I don't know about you, Matt, but for me personally, around the management side of things, I had an I am not. The imposter showed up for me as the I am not that. What might be some of your encouragements to people that hold I am not identities?
So, one of the key things that when you're doing identity work is to make sure that you use positive language, present language, and then you use the illusions in there. And we'll talk about that purposefully using the illusions. Um, this idea of going in and saying this present positive thing. If I go in and say, "Don't jump on the bed" to my kids, "Don't jump on the bed, don't jump on the bed," well, your brain only hears the negative command and then reverses it. So what it hears is "Don't jump on the bed." It takes the word "don't" out and it hears "jump on the bed." So when you say to yourself through auto-suggestion over and over, a form of self-hypnosis, by the way, I am not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. The brain takes out the negative command and simply declares that which you are by declaring that which you are not. So if I say I'm not a bad person, I'm not a bad person, then all of a sudden you start behaving like a bad person because that's what your brain, you're programming it to do. And I really mean this powerfully because when you start understanding how the brain really works through NLP and Psyche, things like that, you start to understand that don't commands are like but. For example, hey, I love you, but we need to talk.
Oh, no.
Every man that's ever heard that, like, oh, Jesus, well, I'm in trouble. Going to the principal's office. There's certain key words that we use that actually trigger the brain in a way that we don't want it to be used. And you got to start learning those things because you're actually programming yourself every single day. And what you practice makes permanent. So when you keep telling yourself not to do something, you're actually commanding your brain to do that exact thing that you know that you don't want to do. So things like but, should, don't, those are key phrases that we talk a lot about with the SOFI program. So you understand your verbiage is software to this hardware called your brain and the programming that goes along with it. And you're speaking that program every single day and reinforcing that. So make sure you use positive language if you're going to go down that route.
Yeah, Matt, I'm conscious I'm hogging the questions. Is there anything you'd like to ask David?
I think I had specifics. This is really enlightening though. And I think that, we all face it, even, you know, I don't say even me. I mean, I face it all the time. But I think David's point around, the don'ts and the buts, that's something that I struggled with for a while. Just it's ingrained in your head and you start to see that shift. And I couldn't agree more. I do that with my boys where I I only use positives now. Like, stay on the floor instead of saying don't jump on the bed. And it's amazing to see how that shift can really happen. And it takes a little bit of time, but I've experienced a wonderful shift in that. So I appreciate that part very much too.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy that came from my I am nots. One of the modules we'll go through in Sophie is the archetypes, and dare I disclose, I have a rebellious aspect to my.
What?
I'm sorry, I'm
Hold on,
disclosing
hold on.
some new information, right? So a lot of my positive energy towards creating, a version of Ryan came from that rebellious. I'm not that, whether that be in my parenting, whether that be in my leadership style. But then David has this knack of just saying these one-liners. They just pierce everything. It's almost like pops the bubble, and he just says, "We don't learn what floats by studying what sinks." I was like, ah. The intensity to the imposter syndrome, David, is it something that we can uh, change going into an event, or is it something that only subsides after an event?
Great question. So let's talk about that from this perspective. When you're going into an event and you're about to learn something, let's imagine you're going into an event that you don't have a lot of experience with. And since you don't have a lot of experience, your imposter syndrome is going to be huge because you don't have a personal verified experience suggesting anything different than you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Now your ego kicks in and it will overcome stuff, and especially if you're male, right? We definitely want to make sure that we're positioned in place of power and authority. That's kind of the role that we've been asked to play. We don't want to be too vulnerable with things like saying things like, I don't know. I will tell you, getting to I don't know is the most amazing thing you can ever say. because it actually creates this amazing rapport with people because then they can get involved in the process. No one likes someone who shows up. Believe me, ask me how I know, when you have all the answers. People don't like that. They want to be involved in the process. So what causes me to be able to say I don't know now, even if I do know, and let other people get involved with it, is because I know who I am and I don't need to prove myself to myself by telling you what I know about your problem. And I will tell you that's a really interesting dynamic as a coach because you think that's our role. We're supposed to solve your problems. That's not how we do things at Samurai Success because it doesn't work over the long term. Short term, yeah, I've seen some amazing results. Long term doesn't work. The power is being able to help you find the master inside of you. And that's really what the program is designed to do is being able to understand that master does exist inside of you and that you can listen to it. And most importantly, you can start trusting that
Mm.
because that's where most of us have gotten talked out of this trusting that internal master. And here's how that's demonstrated. We listen to all these other talking heads about every single subject and we all freak out. We would literally stop listening to the media and our politicians, which we know don't tell us the truth of things. We just talk about it all day long. And yet we turn on that thing and listen to them like they're telling us the absolute truth. What have we done to ourselves? Well, we've stopped listening to that internal master. And is there some kind of conspiracy or cohort or some kind of family that's making this all happen? I don't care if there is or not. I am not going to keep choosing that. And you can do the same. Stop listening to that crap and start seeking the masters inside of you, trusting that, listening to that, because that master is connected directly to source who knows the answers to all things. It's a really powerful place to live from.
Just a reminder of those showcase presentations as soon as next week. There's the first step in the pathway to the experience of what David's just described. David, you've explained to us how imposter syndrome is part of the journey and be part of our human experience for as long as we're here on this plane. How might we change our relationship then to imposter syndrome as a individual, as a collective? How might we redefine our relationship with imposter syndrome?
So we talked a little about just kind of a sliding scale, this imposter syndrome, and the thing that makes the scale smaller so that you have less hooked or impact from the imposter syndrome is by the word experience. So much of the book, so much of the work we talk about is this belief system that says knowledge is power. Okay, that's one experience. I'm not going to want to talk you out of that, but there is another alternative, and that knowledge is not power, but that power comes from the application of that knowledge. And that's my personal experience. Even more so, Ryan, Matt, that when you dive into the experience and you never had experience before, it's scary. But if you trust you going into an experience, then it's okay because you're like, oh, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to stay the student. You go and you learn, and that's where the power is. I know we've talked about this in multiple scrolls before, but I really want to hammer this home before. If you really want to make that imposter syndrome less and less and less, then you have to, what's going to make this sliding scale is your personal verified experience of that so that you know yourself in that level of pressure that you can deal with that and that level of imposter syndrome actually starts to shrink. Never goes away totally, but it starts to shrink. And that's the power of it. So in the experience is the secrets to how to close that gap. That secret is something we call application. You've got to be able to apply that knowledge on a consistent basis. And when you do that, you close that gap around that particular subject in the imposter syndrome. And
Mm.
in our work, there's 10 categories of balance. There are many other categories of balance you can consider, but we put them all and package them into 10. I will tell you that there's an imposter syndrome in every single one of those categories. The only time that scale has become less and less in any one of those 10 categories is because you've practiced and had an experience and have a feeling because of it. That's the only thing that's changed. So then the game becomes okay, if I really want to strengthen or lessen my imposter syndrome in any one of those categories, I need to create some goals associated with that particular subject and then start go learning from a coach, go learning from somebody else, whatever I need to go read a book, whatever. I need to go and immerse myself in that subject to lessen that feeling of the imposter syndrome.
And is being a master student almost like a master key identity to put into your own sense of who you are?
Well, let me tell you about how I learned that. And yes, I would absolutely agree that is the master key. What a beautiful way to say that. Um, of all the different things that I've approached over the last 30 years, long range precision shooting, tactical shotgun, pistol, right? These are things I've never done before, guys. Hockey playing, scuba diving. Even though I grew up really young doing this, I have over 800 dives now. Parachuting, parasailing. Um, Getting into bodybuilding, powerlifting, all these crazy things I've done, motorcycle riding, stunt riding, car racing, all these things I've jumped into. I recognized I had never done them before. So it was like, how am I going to get myself in that learning curve? Well, while I was in all those different events, there was one group of people that dominated, guys, the learning, getting through the learning curve. And they were fascinating because they learned because they weren't bringing their ego to it.
Hmm.
Do you know who this group of people were? The females in the group. They dominated every single learning environment. Every single instructor I went up to, I was like, how is she doing that? I was like, man, she just doesn't bring her ego. I was like, what? I thought we were supposed to bring our egos. And over from every single teacher, they kept telling me, and it was always a dominant female at the top of the list that got to the thing, the highest grades, the highest trophies. I mean, they're just boom, that fast because they didn't bring their evaluator. They didn't bring the teacher. They brought the student. So truly, if you want a master key to be able to learn something at an accelerated way, getting yourself out of the way, staying in that student is the master key system.
Beautiful. Powerful conversation. This one's going to resonate. This is going to be one that you may want to go back and listen to a couple of times just to really have it sink in and yeah, and then go and have yourself an experience of the teaching. Go and have yourself an experience of the words. That's the thing we really encourage here at Samurai Success is to go and apply the knowledge. That's where the real power of the transformation is. All right, let's wrap this up. I'm really excited. Next week, 4 showcase presentations. The 22nd, we got 2 on the 25th and 1 on the 26th. They will be co-hosted by David and Matt. Great opportunity to connect with these two wonderful human beings, learn all about the details of the program. And one thing we're really proud of here at Samurai Success is just such beautiful people that come through the door and engage in this work. That's one of the things. David, would you maybe share your perspective on just the people engaging with this work? That actually, if someone listening right now does come on the journey, who are we going to be? It's not just going to be yourself and Matt as the head coach. It's going to be a group experience. Maybe you can speak into that for us before we leave.
So it's always been a thought, because it was a personal thought for me. Is like, hey, and Tom Henderson, of course, in the book is a representation of all these folks that we're attracting into our world, and that is people who play by the rules, have always been good people, give their shirt off their back, whatever it is. I mean, they're really good people, guys, and yet they're not winning in this physical plane. And it was like, man, then I've seen some other people that aren't really nice people, and they seem to be winning at some metrics that we use of either money or power or whatever the thing we're going to do. It's like, that doesn't make sense. What is happening here? Because I used to believe that it was our consciousness that created the kind of goodness that we have in this physical plane. That is not how I see things today. It's not a consciousness level, it's actually a congruency level. So when you say who you are, your belief about who you are, and you do the things that are congruent with that over a consistent period of time, you really create something called this coherence. And this coherence is this focal point of this attractor factor. And that's the critical part of this. Because the universe doesn't see things as good as bad like we do. Well, this is a people-made experience, good, bad. Because when you watch people who are really congruent, even if they're not doing really good, well-intended things to other people, they're doing it all for themselves, very ego-driven, you see them being very successful. So this starts to make you understand, it's like, oh crap, it's not about those things. You can still be a good person, but you have to really understand how the structure works. When you understand those 3 dimensions, how people really work, how this physical plane really works, and the spiritual influence that we have from all those 3 dimensions together, when you understand how that works, life changes. It's impossible not because then you see the mechanics of things. You understand the structure of things, and then you can start playing a very different game.
Love that. Any final thoughts, comments from yourself, Matt, before we wrap up?
I'm just really, really excited to share this with the world and, just change lives. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's true. And, this work is something that is so dear to me now. And I'm just honored to be able to share it with others. And you guys are the pioneers as well. So I'm happy to be a part of this team. And thanks for having me today.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Thank you, Matt, and for your viewership, the community, for making it here through to the very end. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. That'll be a great help in helping us grow and reach more wonderful people who could engage in this work. Subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone that you know would really resonate with what we've shared. And lastly, just head to the show notes. The link to the showcase presentations will be there, and we look forward to seeing you on one of those calls. And I'll leave it in your good hands, David, to share a final thought and wrap it up for us.
Yeah, I'm really excited about both these cohorts going on here in the States and also in the Europe portion. We're starting to see a lot of people come out of the woodwork, even family members of us calling us, reaching out. They've read the book, they haven't read the book, they haven't completed the book, whatever it is, and they're going through some really tough times. And so this work is so, so important. So if you've got made it this far, please do yourself a favor. Get signed up for one of those showcase presentations. Find out what we do. Find out for yourself. Listen to me. I know that some part of your life you've been sold something that really didn't work. Come see what we're doing. Give yourself, because I know that's skeptical inside of you. Please bring that skepticism to it. If it does not resonate after you see it, well, I love you, hug you, whatever it is, but at least you'll know. I would hate for you to, like the big giant elephant that we teach, by putting this big chain around their feet when they're really young, right? And as they grow up, you can actually take that chain and make it just this little piece of, string, and that huge elephant won't move because of that string that's tied to that. Make sure you do not get into that syndrome of when something that you've really been waiting for, something you've really wanted your whole life, really shows up, that you're so skeptical you don't even look into it. Please don't do that for yourself. Look into this with us. See if it makes sense. Make your own quality decisions.
Sunrise Success community. Until next time, we'll see you again.